Fuel and emissions test 10. This is about gasoline direct injection and electronic throttle control systems. Okay, what do you guys know about that stuff? What do you know about gasoline direct injection and electronic throttle control?
It's very high pressure.
Isn't that interesting? It is very high pressure. Well, it can be medium high pressure or very high pressure, but there's more than one pressure on that. Where is the fuel injected in an engine equipped with gasoline direct injection?
I'm going to say it's directly into the combustion chamber.
It is directly into the combustion chamber. And that is what you've got. You know, if you got gasoline direct injection, you can have something the size of a Trailblazer with like a small 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine in it, and it has really good power and fuel economy because GDI provides that. Now, one of the ways it does that is gasoline direct injection not only controls how much fuel is put in there, it controls when it's put in there. Now, you don't get the when you got regular multi-point fuel injection. When is not something that you have the luxury of choosing. The only thing is going to, you know, where is the gasoline, where's the fuel injection, where does that squirt take place on a conventional fuel injected engine like we've been working with?
And these are the ones that can do the, where it can start up by itself, right?
Well, some of them can, not all of them. Huh?
It's sitting on top of the intake.
Behind the valve.
Yeah.
The intake valve. And it's stored there for a second until the intake valve's open and then it's carried in. You got me? Okay, on this one here, you're shooting it right in there. Now, can you think of a problem that might happen because of the fact that the gasoline is going directly into the combustion chamber instead of flowing through the intake? Or actually...
If it leaks, can it run back up in there?
Not really. That's the main problem that we have. What do you have that builds up? You got throttle body sludging.
Carbon.
Well, yeah, carbon and sludge. I mean, basically, it's, and that cakes up on the valves and stops it from breathing as well. It's horrible. You know what I mean? It's just nasty. All right, so one of the primary things that you got to do on a GDI engine that you don't have to do on these other engines is clean the doggone valves. And it's real aggravating to do. That's one of the things that has to be done on those engines. In other words, you got to pull the intake, you got to expose the valves, and you got to clean them. That's some more service that we can do. You know what I'm saying? It's not complicated service necessarily. I mean, if you can pull the intake off, clean the valve, put it back on, and you don't want a bunch of stuff going down in the cylinder while you're doing that. So you got to use discretion while you're doing it. The fuel pump inside the fuel tank on a vehicle equipped with gasoline direct injection produces about what pressure? 50 to 60 psi. However, there's an additional fuel pump on GDI engines as a high pressure fuel pump. And what's it powered by?
Oh, that is the camshaft.
Yeah, the camshaft. It's actually riding on the camshaft. And you're going to see it. The little thing looks like it's a little heavy duty steel block that's up on top of the engine. Right? And say it quick.
Okay, my folder on the computer's gone, so...
Yeah, then you're going to probably have to... You'll find it on this jump drive right here. Because he loaded all that stuff. Okay, find it on this drive here and bring me the drive back when you're done. All right. Okay, now then. All right. Anyway, you're going to look at the top. When you open the hood, you're going to look, and right there on the fuel rail is a big old pump, you know, that's actually riding on it. It's a heavy thing. If you hold it in your hand, it feels like a rock and all that. All right, let me talk to Tammy for a second. Anyway, the pump is real heavy and it feels, you know, real solid when you hold it in your hand. It feels like if you threw it at somebody, you'd knock them out. Because it's got to be, whenever you got something that's going to put up a lot of pressure, it's got to have a lot of beefy metal so that, you know, this, sometimes, you know, 3, 4, 5,000 pounds of pressure, gasoline pressure, you know, boom, you make a, you know. Of course, some of them actually run lower pressure, like a few hundred pounds. So they don't all run thousands of pounds, okay? So get that done. All right, now, the high pressure fuel pressure is regulated using what?
The electric pressure control valve.
Yeah, so typically you're going to use an electric pressure control valve anytime you're going to regulate any kind of high pressure. You got me? You understand that? Now, what other kind of high pressure do we regulate on our vehicles? I'm talking about on vehicles that you know about. You probably don't know about all of them. Common rail fuel injection has got really high pressure. Like on a Duramax, it's 27,550 pounds when it's at its max. You know the pressure with eye on those things? 27,550 pounds is what it goes. When it's idling, it's about 5,000 pounds, and that's diesel. But that's direct injection too, see?
I was just going to say, those injectors fire right in the slope.
They sure do. They absolutely do. And so,
That's one of those things with
yeah.
these.
But anyway, on the Power Stroke, you're actually controlling the control oil pressure that operated the injectors, because they'd have high oil pressure, but it only went like 3,500 pounds max.
But gasoline doesn't have.
And the 3,500 pounds of oil pressure, you're multiplying it times 7 at the injector tip, because the piston is 7 times as big at the top as it is at the bottom. So whenever you put 500 pounds on the top of this piston, how much pressure are you putting on the bottom? 5 times 7 is what?
35.
All right. If you're putting 3,000 pounds on top of that little piston in the Huey injector,
221.
yeah, 21,000 pounds. Okay, so that's a ton of pressure. Anyway, so we've got to control that stuff. Now, basically, you're going to have an electric pressure control valve. That ain't rocket science. Anytime you got electric pressure control valves that are controlled by the engine controller, what are you also going to have?
Huh?
You're going to have something to tell the computer
Regulate.
what the pressure is, so that it'll know what it's doing with it. It's got to have feedback. It's got to know. It's going to have to know. Anytime the computer's controlling anything, it needs to know, how am I doing? Right? It needs to know, this is what I'm shooting for. It needs to be able to, if it's got a target that it's got to shoot for, it's got to see how close it is to that target so it can make adjustments to get it there. GDI fuel injectors operate under a pressure of about what?
500 to 2,900.
Yeah, that's 500 to 2,900, and that's depending. So remember what I said. You can actually, you're either going to have, you can tell when it goes in there, but you can also, listen to this, you can also determine what kind of a charge you're going to have. You can have a striated charge or a homogeneous charge. Stratified or homogeneous charge. And what a stratified charge is whenever you start it burning and then you shoot it in there where it goes boom, 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 like that. Or a homogeneous charge is a big boom, boom. So you can either have a lot of little booms or you can have a big boom. And that's depending on how you put it in there. In other words, how the fuel is injected. So there's a ton of control that you've got over the fuel. When it's injected, how the charge operates. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And the droplets that are coming out of there are so tiny that you have absolute complete combustion. So what that means is you got better emission control, you got better power, you got a whole bunch of benefits to GDI. And GDI has been on cars now for several years. Hyundai has got some vehicles out there with GDI on them already.
How similar this is to diesels.
Huh? Yeah, it's vaguely similar to a diesel, but you're not firing on compression. You're still got a spark. And so there's other vehicles besides the Hyundai, but what I'm starting to say is you're going to see Hyundais driving up and down the road every day. That's probably one of the more common ones. It's got the GDI on it, and you didn't know that it had. Hyundai's also got hybrids now, and then they call it something like Blue Drive or something like that. But anyway, let's go on here. Let's see. Fuel injectors used on a gasoline direct injection system are pulsed using how much voltage?
50 to 90.
50 to 90 volts. This is interesting stuff, isn't it? 50 to 90 volts. Why do we use so much voltage? Why do we use so much voltage? Why do we need so much voltage? I mean, 12 volts is okay for other injectors. Why do we need so much on these? Yeah, that, and we also want it to happen really, really fast.
Yep.
We're talking nanoseconds. The timing of that fuel charge has got to be perfectly timed. On the other ones, like I say, it can be, there's a sort of a bigger window, and it's a little sloppier, so you didn't have to have that. Of course, on high-performance vehicles, you're going to have injectors with lower resistance, too, even on the old kind of fuel injection, because lower resistance means they're going to operate quicker. Which mode of operation results in a richer air-fuel mixture near the spark plug?
I think you said something about stratified before.
Did I say stratified? Yay! All right, stratified charge. Some engines that use a gasoline direct injection system also have port injection.
Yes.
All right, that's actually true. A gasoline direct injection system can be used to start an engine without the need for a starter.
Yes.
It can be.
Yes.
You see, it can be. It didn't say that all of them are set up that way.
Yep.
Yeah. So now I've actually seen a straight six one time over there at in a F-150. This old Duraspark ignition system like we got over there. When you turn on the key, sometimes it makes a spark, pop. This one spark when you turn on the key, pop. And everything happened to be in the right place. Ever so often on one of those, when you turn it on, it goes pop. If there's some gas floating around down in there and it's in the right space, you'll turn it on, the spark plug will pop, and the engine will just start by default without you even touching the starter. Hey, Tammy.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, we can do that. I'll see. Yeah, she's still down there. I'll tell her to do that. All right, bye.
To be continued.
10 is D.
Oh, yes it is. Oh. Yeah, I did all these worksheets last week, because I figured, you know, it was like homework.
Yeah.
You know, and then I show up on Monday and it's like, why do we only have one sheet for this week?
All right. Okay, here we are again. Let my camera get focused on my face again instead of the wall. Okay, here we go. Where are we at?
10.
And
A lack of power from an engine equipped with gasoline direct injection could be due to what?
carbon on the injectors and the intake valves.
What do you think about that, guys? Both B and C. Carbon on the injectors and the intake valves. And that stuff's got to be cleaned off. GDI equipped engines have a higher efficiency due to what compression ratio?
Higher compression ratio.
Higher compression ratio. That's pretty cool stuff when you get right down to it, you know. And they've been doing it in Europe for quite a while. Seems to me like somebody could come up with something to keep that stuff cleaned out of there, you know, so that it doesn't. Gasoline direct injection is also known as what?
SIDI, but I don't remember what it means.
Okay, somebody needs to, what is it, semi-indirect injection maybe? I don't know. I don't know, I'm making this up as I go. An engine equipped with GDI may have a how much percent improvement in fuel economy?
25%.
25%. 25% better fuel economy on an engine equipped with GDI. The SIDI, S-I-D-I, high pressure system fuel pump uses a single barrel piston plunger that's driven by what? A three-lobed cam.
I was just looking at some of the answers. A single flat-sided cam?
Yeah, figure that out. How do you do a flat-sided cam? Although I have seen square gears. Yeah, you ever seen square gears?
I've never seen a square gear.
I've seen square gears. If you go to the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry, they got a whole bunch of stuff along there, and they got square gears.
Weird.
Literally have square gears. The points go to the flat sides, and it just it's all keyed together. And me and my son went up there whenever he graduated from Navy boot camp, and I thought that was cool. I got film of it somewhere. Let me see. When the fuel pressure regulator is deactivated, the fuel pressure defaults to what?
Low pressure mode.
What do you think? Everybody like that answer?
Yeah.
Low pressure mode. Now this is what's strange to me. On the Power Stroke diesel, when you disable the electronic pressure control solenoid, the pressure goes low. Got me? And you got no pressure. If you do that on a Duramax, the pressure maxes out. Goes the opposite direction. Goes to 95% or whatever, and it's real high.
Weird.
Yeah, I mean, they go opposite directions, and I don't know what reason it's for. But anytime you're operating with pressures this high, you just need to make sure that you don't, crack a fuel line loose or something like that, because it'll cut your hand clean off, and that would ruin your whole day. Don't ever go there. And or if it sprayed you in the face, that'd be the end of your face. Let me see. GDI system operating in a stratified mode results in what?
A rich air fuel mixture
Near the spark plug tip. Isn't that something you can have right different, right there in that around the tip of the spark plug? It can be richer. What GDI operating mode is used to burn sulfur from the NOx catalyst?
Stratified heating mode.
You like that? Everybody like that answer? Is he the only one that read the chapter in here? Okay, when compared to a port fuel injected engine, a GDI engine will have what kind of compression ratio? Yeah, we already talked about that. D, higher. What component of this GDI high pressure pump is the pressure regulator? What component?
Electrical connector on it.
Yeah. It's got to be A, doesn't it?
Okay.
Did everybody say that was A? Everybody like A for an answer? Okay, flip to the next page. All right then, let me see if I can read that question. This illustration shows what kind of combustion chamber?
Spray guided.
What do you think? That's number 20, isn't it?
Yes.
Spray guided. See that spraying? You got your little dip in the top of the piston, which kind of also reminds you of a Power Stroke or diesel or something. The use of an electronic throttle control system, and we're getting away a little bit from GDI right now. The use of an electronic throttle control system allows the elimination of all of these except what? A, idle air control, B, cruise control actuator, C, accelerator pedal, or D, mechanical throttle cable.
You're always gonna need an accelerator pedal.
Yeah, you're going to have an accelerator pedal. Whenever I bought my '07 F-150, it was just a plain Jane truck. It had mat in the floor, had a little AM/FM radio in it and all that stuff, and had air conditioning, power steering, automatic transmission. But I wanted cruise control, you know. And it had electronic throttle control on it, you know. And so I said, I wonder what I got to do to put cruise control on this. So I said, is there a kit for putting cruise control on this? And they said, no, we don't list anything for that. And so basically, I bought the, there you go. I basically bought the, all right, get that over to Tammy, please. I bought the buttons, and I put them on the steering wheel. There was a place to plug them in already, and then I plugged the laptop in, and it said, do you have cruise control? We said, sure. And then I went down the road, and I set my cruise control, a little green light on the dash come on, I had cruise.
Wow.
Yeah, $52 for a set of buttons is all it took.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's got factory cruise. You know, all you had to do is add the buttons and tell, you know, go in there and tell it you had cruise.
Rich, I've seen a car that didn't have an accelerator pedal. It had something on the dash that was like kind of like a video game.
Yeah, I know that's not factory. Nobody does that except for unless you've been modified it or something. I knew of one that where this paraplegic guy that could move. All he could use was his hands a little bit, and he could totally drive his car with a little control pad with his hands. He had a joystick and everything.
Oh.
And but they actually put all that stuff on there at a brace shop over there, you know. But anyway, the throttle plate is spring-loaded to hold the throttle slightly open. How far? All these are electronic throttle control problems, 16 to 20%. Let me tell you something really, really important about electronic throttle control. Do not reach in there with your hand and move that throttle plate with your hand. I think I was telling Harrison about this. Because on some vehicles that's got electronic throttle control, if you move that thing with your hand, that throttle body will never work again. And you're gonna spend $300 or $400 on a throttle body. Like if you decided you wanted to clean the throttle body, you ever felt a throttle plate stick in the bore on a one with a throttle cable? It feels like you're standing on a brick and then all of a sudden it pops loose, you know, the throttle cable. Well, these do that too sometimes. Or if they got them holding open. But if they happen to be all the way shut, when you go to give it the gas and it sticks and it's having to pop it open, you'll give it the gas and nothing will happen. All of a sudden it takes off on you see. Well, somebody said, well, I'm going to clean that. How am I going to clean the throttle plate on one that's got electronic throttle body if I'm going to do it safely? What do you say? You switch on the key, have somebody get in there and push the pedal. You don't have to crank the car. And whenever you say switch on the key, that doesn't mean start the vehicle. Make sure that you know that. And make sure if you're working with somebody and you got your hand down in here amongst all the belts and everything and you're wanting them to turn on the key, don't have an inexperienced person in the seat and say switch on the key, because they're going to start that sucker. If you tell them switch on the key, they will start it just about every single time. But you say, I want you to turn the key to the on position, but do not start the vehicle. You got to be, before you ever put your hand anywhere, just switch on the key, if you're working with somebody that you think knows something that they don't know, you can really get hurt bad because of something they did in the driver's seat, Or you're out here trying to check fuel pressure to see if you got no start. Okay, switch on the key now. So you switch on the key and you're trying to operate, fool with the relay to get some pressure here. And then you tell the guy that's sitting in the seat, do you have the key switched on? And then you hear the fuel pump go, wing, and he goes, well, he didn't have it switched on before. He just had it switched to that first position, so it goes both ways. They either don't turn them on all the way or they go too far. Let's see, throttle plate actuator motor is what kind of electric motor? It's nothing but a DC motor, man. That's all it is.
Faster response?
The actuator motor is controlled by the PCM through what type of circuit?
An H-bridge.
An H-bridge circuit. When does, and also you got to have a, let me see, Lundy, up there above your head, there's an engine controller. No, to the right. Right there in front of you. No, that one. That's the one I want. Okay, now Harrison, where is that electronic throttle plate?
Right down there.
Yeah, look down there where those throttle bodies are and give me the electronic throttle body.
The pedal dropped down there.
All right, bring me the pedal.
It just fell
Is
off.
it?
Yeah.
There's a plastic gas pedal down there.
I saw the plastic gas pedal.
Yeah. Now this right here is a Black Oak engine controller for an Explorer. All right? That's what that is. It's a Black Oak engine controller. It's got a really high processor speed, you know. And this right here is the accelerator pedal. You notice it's got wires that connect to it for a Ford 500. As a matter of fact, it's for Michelle Goosby's Ford 500. This right here is the electronic throttle body for a car like that too. All right, and so these electronic throttle bodies sometimes have to be replaced because the thing won't do anything but idle and all that. And this happens on Nissans and everything. Now this Ford, you can actually open this throttle plate without a problem. See, that won't hurt anything on a Ford. But see how it's holding it partially open? See, you can see daylight through there. It's holding it a little bit open, and the reason they do that is they don't want it sticking in the bore if they can help it and surprising you. See, there's all kinds of stuff they had to address, problems and all that kind of stuff. But the reason they had to use this engine controller for electronic throttle control was because they needed an engine controller that would talk really, really fast and process commands really quick. Inputs and outputs had to work with warp speed, so they got this fancy thing. And if you pull this thing apart, it's kind of dumb looking. It's just a big printed circuit looking thing wrapped around in there with components on it. But they notice the connectors. There's 3 connectors with all kinds of things on them. So there you go on that. We had to replace that one on a Explorer. But anyway, okay, let's see. When does the PCM perform a self-test of the electronic throttle control system?
The ignition system is first turned into the on position before the engine starts.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that you see, a lot of these systems it does that, like, you know, like the Duramax checked its EGR valve that way. It runs the EGR valve and bumps it to make sure it works and all that. A lot of the times whenever you switch it on, it does things. Other things happen when you switch it on too. That engine controller wakes up and it looks at all of the sensors and everything and sees where everything is. It sees where, you know, it's wanting to know where idle is, and one of the reasons it's doing that on this one here. And it basically does a reset every time it turns on when it comes to positions and temperatures and everything. The throttle position sensor used in the throttle body assembly of an electronic throttle control unit system is what type?
It can either be 2 potentiometers that read the opposite direction or a Hall effect sensor.
Yeah, typically this one, the answer that they're wanting here is the either B or C, which is what he just said. But now, let me tell you this. What you got to do, if you're going to get used to these things, you got to get those 3. If it's a good idea to find the TP sensor on the pedal A, B, and C, because there'll be 3 of them in there. And if they don't all agree, you know, then you're going to have reduced power mode. Like, or if it thinks that it can't trust what the accelerator pedal is telling it to do, it's basically going to only give you about half throttle. Because the last thing they want is for this thing to go stupid on you and go wide open and, you know, drive you away and, you know, crash and burn. A green wrench symbol is displayed on the dash. What does this mean? It's a green wrench symbol.
ETC fault in a Ford.
In a Ford. Now, some of the symbols, some of the wrench symbols are on the Ford are orange, you know, but that's what that wrench means. Electronic throttle control fault. Okay, technician is checking the operation of electronic throttle control system by depressing the accelerator pedal with the ignition in a run position. What is the most likely result if the system is functioning correctly?
I'm going to say the throttle was wide open and the accelerator pedal was pressed all the way.
Now this is basically they're qualifying this, you know, if it's functioning correctly. 28. It says no throttle movement.
And see, that's what I put down.
Yeah.
But I also had a question on it.
Well, I don't like that because typically what I'm watching is whenever you press the throttle, it opens. You know what I mean?
Looks like I read something in the book where it's conflicting with that.
Yeah, exactly. This is not basically, I mean, I think that's the wrong answer on that one because I've never seen one that didn't move the throttle at all. Even when the engine wasn't running, the throttle still follows the accelerator. You know what I mean? And A would be the right answer. The throttle goes to wide open throttle when the accelerator pedal is depressed all the way. That's the answer I like. I don't like no throttle movement. That doesn't make any sense to me. And like I say, I think that's an error in that question. Somebody will let me know, I'm sure, if I'm wrong about that. All right, I'm going to try to get through with this. With the ignition off and the key out of the ignition, what should happen if a technician uses a screwdriver to push on the throttle plate in an attempt to open the valve. It should move and spring back to the home position when released. I would not advise that, because you can mess them up, and I'd just rather not do that, guys. Don't move that thing with your hand unless you're wanting to buy it. See, I'm moving that one over there because I got it in one of, but like I say, you don't know if you may get away with it on a bunch of vehicles, and then there's a different vehicle that's got electronic throttle control, and you think you know about it. You move the one on that one, and all of a sudden it's gone south on you. I mean, it's just too much at stake there, you know. The throttle body may be cleaned if recommended by the vehicle manufacturer if what conditions are occurring. Number 30. Rough idle, coast down stall, lower than normal idle speed. Technician A says an electronic throttle control uses a stepper motor. Technician B says electronic throttle control uses spring-loaded 16% percent of the throttle opening. In other words, Technician B says, let me read that again, that an electronic throttle control uses spring-loaded. What? Is spring-loaded. No wonder I got tripped up on that. To about 16 to 20% of the throttle opening. And so that's basically B only. It's not a stepper motor. After servicing a stepper motor, why would they not use a stepper motor?
Too slow.
It's too slow. It ain't fast enough. You can't do that. After servicing the air filter on an ETC equipped vehicle, a technician has forgotten to connect the throttle motor wiring. What's going to happen when the vehicle is started?
It'll start, but it just won't go anywhere.
Yeah, you're just going to be idle speed between 12 and 1600, depending on, whatever. When the engine is first turned on, a click noise is heard from under the hood of a vehicle equipped with ETC. Technician A says this is normal operation. Technician B says the TAC motor should not move unless the engine is running.
A.
That's A. Let's whip on through the rest of these bad boys now. Identify the throttle position sensor in this diagram.
A.
Identify the throttle position sensor in this diagram. You like that? Everybody like that? 34 is A. Which component in here is the drive gear?
It's that little bitty guy over there, number A.
That's typically the way it's going to be, isn't it?
Yep.
Why is it going to be a little guy?
Because it uses all those big gears to boost it up.
If you've got a little gear turning big gears, you got some power, don't you?
Torque.
Think about it. A little gear turning big gears. You got power. All right. How many of you guys rode 10-speed bicycle? Okay. Whenever you're in your lowest gear, where you're really having to crank the pedals a lot to not get much speed, how are your gears set up? What size gears are you using?
And one is real hard, small.
Well, like in first gear, you're actually really cranking it. So which one is? How are the gears? Which gear is the smallest in a situation like that?
They work from the smallest to the largest, the bigger.
Yeah, you got a littler gear in the front, and then a bigger one in the back. The little gear in the front, big one in the back. You got a lot of turns, but you got a lot of power too. You can pump up a hill just no problem at all. But as you get up to where you're getting more speed, it's just like a car. You start shifting up, and it walks that thing over to the other gears. Here you are with not very many pedal turns, but you're really moving. So let's think about that. You want power when you got a little gear pulling a big one. That's what that's what you're after. What you're gonna get. In this diagram, which terminals are used for the throttle position sensors?
That's C, 1, 2, 4, and 6.
Anybody else got any kind of answer, or are we doing that? Number 36. 1, 2, 4, and 6. 1, 2, 4, and 6. Now look at it. We got two sensors there now, right? We're sort of doing it redundant so that we can make, if one of them fails, the other one will actually be able to pick up the slack and then change things. Technician A says electronic throttle control uses a stepper motor. Technician B says electronic control. That is the same question we just had earlier. Just forget it.
No, this one talks about a vacuum controlled stepper motor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Vacuum controlled is the caveat. It looked like the same question. I'm sorry. 37 is going to be a dog.
None of them.
Yep. All electronic throttle control system. Have you ever seen vacuum operated throttle before? Anybody seen one? Cruise control operates the throttle with vacuum, don't it?
Yes, it does.
But what about variable Venturi carburetors?
Who?
Yeah, those little Fords had variable Venturi carburetors on them. They had a big vacuum diaphragm in the back. Yeah. Why, are y'all going crazy listening to this?
No.
Variable Venturi carburetors had a big vacuum diaphragm in the back.
I said, what's a carburetor?
Yeah, carburetor is a good point. Oh, yeah, well, whatever. All electronic throttle control system includes the following components except what?
They don't have an idle control switch, do they?
What do you think? Idle control switch. They ain't got it.
Ain't got it.
Okay. Questions, comments?